Da-da. And Vivian, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and lead us into our little PD session that you are so very thankfully running for us today.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to, first of all, start off and acknowledge the traditional landowners on which we are standing on. I'm currently on the Wurundjeri land of the Kulin Nation here in Melbourne, or NARM. And I just like to pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. So if you'd like to highlight whose lands you're on, you're more than welcome to in the chat. But welcome all today. Thank you for joining today. Hopefully you'll get something a bit out of it. I am a lecturer in public health. And as I said, I'm based here at the Melbourne campus, and I teach participatory health research. So it's pretty interesting though as well, because my background is actually in urban planning, and I've been really interested in community engagement. And so that's sort of how I've landed here and looking at how neighborhoods cultivate supportive environments for health. But since I landed at CQU, particularly in Melbourne, because at the time Laura Carton was the AVC, AVP, I'm not sure what it's called now, but she was also the executive director of the Social Innovation Unit. And so she sort of started planting the seeds of this notion of social innovation. And I started reading into that, and I started looking into human-centered design. And I thought, oh my goodness, what a beautiful synergy between that and participatory research. And so I just started gravitating towards the different toolkits and the different activities, and started students teaching that. And here I am. Shall I just jump right on in? Okay. I'm going to share my screen. I did prepare a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm more happy to send that, to send the slides onwards to Trixie, if that's
Great,
okay.
thank you.
Yep. Let's see. All right. So I love that it's called a working party. That's awesome. I love anything that says a party.
Love it. We've got the we're seeing the presenter screen. Is it the presenter display screen with the two sides?
Okay, let me see how. Let's see. Maybe I'll just go ahead.
I know this always tricks me up too.
Yeah. Reading view. I will do reading view. That's all right. Is that all right?
There you go. Yeah, that works. Yep. Okay. Love it.
So first of all, though, too, because again, this is rather interactive. If you can reach it, if you have access, get pen and a writing utensil, because we'll use that later. Because I'll try and do it through the chat, but there's some things that you do need to just perhaps write down. So just take a moment, grab a piece of scrap paper and a pen, and then we can get started. All right. First of all, I just want to open up and gather us here in this space, just because we're all gathering here. Joyful, what I'd like you to do perhaps in the next 5 minutes or so, or maybe even 3, just take a moment and think of what joyful means to you. As I said, there on the screen, synonyms are happy, cheerful, delighted, ecstatic. And some examples: your friends give you a big surprise birthday party, or you gave birth to a healthy baby. Think of an event that has been joyful in your life, and think about what is that experience. And if you can share that experience in the chat box, so if you can generate an idea that expresses an experience where you were joyful. You can write that in the chat. Again, got a few minutes. Go ahead and think. And think what is joyful. So, Katrina, I'm right there with you. I was thinking as well. My son saying good morning first thing in the morning. Oh my goodness, look at all the children. Time with family, grandchildren making you laugh. Lovely, finding the love of your life. Oh, that's gorgeous. I think that's more than joyful. Cooking for my family in my kitchen. Great, thank you, Emma. It's a great joyful moments. I just got the warm fuzzies from that. Grandbabies, lovely. I think, has everyone responded? Lovely. Thank you. So hopefully now we're all in a joyful mood, and we can begin. Let's see. There we go. Just a refresher. I think we know that CQU is, I think, still Australia's only change maker campus, the Ashoka University. And with this, it endeavors to embed the mindsets and skills to create positive social change. And fundamental to the social innovation is creating the conditions for collective action. And I took a quote that it's about connecting people in ways that promote understanding, reciprocity, and cooperation. So if we think about what social innovation is, I think it really aligns with this notion of participatory research, about ways of bringing in social innovation into our research experiences and our lives. Oh, it's just skipping right on ahead. So I think I think it's an opportunity, and thank you for inviting me. I think understanding the student experience and trying to research it, I think it can be social innovative, particularly if we're going to use human-centered design thinking. So I did not save it. That top bit says design thinking is not a linear path, but rather a big mass of looping back to different places in the process. So this is sort of to give you just a little bit of theory behind what is human-centered design thinking. There's a lot of different frameworks out there, but I tend to use IDEO because they're the industry leaders in design thinking. And they usually use a framework of 3 different tangents. And as you can say, it's this iterative notion of going back and forth, because they don't think that a project, in trying to solve problems, you don't go simply from A to B, but you're trying to really define all these different aspects of it. So what it means is this framework looks at inspiration, that we want to get outside of our perspectives and be inspired by others. And then we move on to this ideation process where we want to generate ideas, make observations, keep the ones that we like, and then implement them. And so the thing is it's not linear. You'll find that as you work through this process, it goes back and forth. One of the frameworks that came out from Britain that IDEO built upon was this notion of the double diamond. And so if we look here for this big block, if we think about traditional research, it's all about gathering data. And so we're trying to understand our populations, and then we make recommendations. The beauty and what I see the niftiness of human-centered design is that not only is it iterative, that we're constantly refining our ideas and refining our solutions, but yes, we do the nature of collecting data and trying to understand our populations and make recommendations. But not only do we make recommendations, we activate them. We try to get our communities to actually build solutions and then go back and test them. And I think this diamond right here, this part here, separates, I think, human-centered design thinking from other research processes. And I think this is where your innovation comes in, because you're continually trying to create solutions that are meaningful for the communities that you're working with. So today we're gonna try and run through some of the activities that represent these stages of ideation, inspiration. We're trying to gather data. We'll try to create some solutions, and then we'll try and prototype them and see what's there. All right. Hopefully this is the brief. Trixie, this is what you've given me, that you're interested in learning and how might we accommodate students to take up higher education. Thumbs up if that's all right, if that's where we're going.
Let's stick with that. Yes.
Okay.
We're still really honing in on what we're going to research, what we want to do, but this is a good general starting point.
Okay. So we're going to start here, and hopefully you'll see that these activities that you're going to learn today, again, whatever issue you decide upon, that again, these activities could translate over. Early on, thank you, Trixie, you've sent out this thing called the empathy map canvas. I'm not sure if any of you have been able to work your way through it. If you can, you're ahead of the curve. But if you haven't, what I'd like to point out here is that, again, part of the human-centered design thinking, it starts with this inspiration phase. It's trying to understand who is your population, who's your community. And so what they do is they start out, and what I do with my students is I start them out with this empathy map canvas. And the beauty of this, I think, is there's different perspectives you can take. You can either use it for yourself. So as the person that is working with students, who are you? And you can empathize with yourself. What do you need to do? What do you see? What do you say? What do you do? What do you hear? And then what are your pains and gains in working with your population? So it can be, the empathy map can be used as a reflective piece for you as you relate to your students. But you can also use it as trying to understand, well, what are your students feeling? So are you empathizing with your students? And generally, you can do that as well, because essentially what this empathy map wants for you to do is to observe and to understand, and then get to the pains and gains. What are the things, what are the issues that your population is facing, and what are the strengths that you can build upon? The other thing I want to note is that it's not only students. You can also use this to think about families. So perhaps maybe how are families supporting students or their partners? You may think about admin on campus, so the student engagement staff or well-being coordinators. So you can open up to the different stakeholders to try and see where perhaps maybe other issues may be. So any questions on that? All right. So if you were able to work your way through the empathy map, you would, as I said, you'd come up to the pains and gains section. And essentially what that is, what I like to think about now is this notion of the sailboat. Because what we're trying to look at, well, what are the enablers of the topic? So what were the gains? And what are the anchors, or what are the pains? Yeah. So for those who haven't worked through the empathy map, just take a moment now to think about if you want to focus on the students, or if you want to focus on yourself or different stakeholders when you're trying to engage students to take up higher education. What are the winds in the sail, or what are the anchors? So,
and Vivian, just a question on that. When it comes to human-centered design, is it good to do this empathy map in order to understand where your how you feel about it, to sort of see where you're situated, in order to then not allow that to guide you and lead you? Like, is that sort of why you do it?
Well, the thing about human-centered design, though, too, you want as many stakeholders at the table as possible. So it's not really necessarily a one-way, the researchers doing this for somebody else. You actually want to get the different perspectives of the different stakeholders, ideally. So for the empathy map, again, you would have everybody place themselves in each other's positions. Then you can understand where everybody's coming from. Ideally, it's always a good self-check to see where you are. And again, to ask your students where they think who you are, and then you can see kind of where you're falling and you're aligning with. So,
good.
All right, I'm going to try the whiteboard. We'll see if this works.
Sorry, Vivian, I just had a question about that. When you talk about the wind and the anchors, do you mean like the barriers to our research, or are we talking about the issue? So, for example, one challenge with the research is that we can often only access existing students. Once students have withdrawn from education, it's much harder to, get their perspective, because they are no longer, we no longer have access to them as participants. Is that the sort of anchor that you're talking about, or are you more talking about the challenges that the students face?
See, again, with the empathy map, it depends who you are empathizing with. So I think, like, if from your perspective as staff, that would be your pain, perhaps. and conversely, it could be the student's pain that you know, once they finish or they have no communication. In any case, what you're trying to human-centered design is trying to see like what problem for whom, and again trying to see to kind of narrow it down to, okay, everyone has a different challenge, and it may be that the challenge that you're trying to solve for is among your staff as opposed to the students themselves. But it's just a matter of how you come together as a group about where you decide. And I think it's a good exercise to do, you know, as many different stakeholders, because then you try to see what is possible, like what research that you do want to tackle in the end, what is achievable, what's more interesting to you to solve. So it's kind of a non-answer, Anna, sorry.
No, that's okay. I get it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. But it kind of depends upon, and you'll see, because I think that also the beauty of human-centered design thinking is that it really spends a lot of time trying to define the problem. Because the thing is, oftentimes we're not defining the right problem. We're defining a generic problem, and we see that's why solutions haven't really been solving it, because we haven't narrowed down and focused on specifically what is the problem. And are we looking at from a different perspective? Whose perspective? So that's where we're at. I'm just gonna share the whiteboard. Honestly, this is the first time too, Trixie, that I'm using the whiteboard. I've always started one, but something's happened and we ended up just using something different. Collaborating, open board. Oh, there it goes.
There you
I
go.
wonder,
Happening, yes.
I just wonder if if everyone moves, can you stop? Oh, there we go. Hey, everyone. Okay, so here's the whiteboard. And so if you go here to the sticky note, if you can go ahead and fill out, if you have an enabler or a barrier that you'd like to write down, please do so right there. So there's just click on the sticky note and it would pop up, and then you can just write.
Oh, so where's the sticky note? Oh, it must be the dump one.
So there should be I'm just looking on the screen, but on the left-hand side, do you see the tool board?
Yeah,
and so it's right below the text.
Okay, shape, line, text, sticky note. Got it. Right. I'm right.
And then just pick your beautiful color and fill in. You can choose one. You can write one of each: a wind in your sail, a gain, as well as a pain, or just one.
Oh, okay. I'll play with this.
And have a little play. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Sorry, dumb question. Your little names that are going around all over my place, all over the screen, is that just your mouse?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if I just bounce my mouse up and down like this, you'll get a headache?
Anna, yes. Well, it's just going up and down.
Cool. I've never used this whiteboard before.
There we go.
This is a new version of whiteboard. I haven't seen it before. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, the little names going all over the place. I'm trying not to comment on anybody's mouse skills.
All right. last minute, just write up your idea, one idea of what is a pain or a gain, and then we'll step back and look at what's been written. Again, hopefully this is in relation to how might we accommodate students to take up higher education?
Oh,
30 seconds. And again, usually in real life, it's, if you can imagine people on sticky notes working together in little groups doing this. Let's see what we have here. Actually, oh, no. There it is. Not such. All right. Oh, so we've got a few here. Oh, I should have prefaced everything. Generally when you are having people write things down through this process, you want one idea per note, but that's okay for now. So we've got a pain. Participants can be difficult to recruit. And again, university students have a certain level of literacies. Yep. Gains, the wins that we have the capacity to bring about change, so our desire. So desire, very nice. Information out. So there's lots of information. Anchor, people don't know what's available. Anchor, assuming challenges. All about assumptions. Yep. Anything else? Not understanding the socio situation that the students we think we know. Okay, so we're not quite understanding the full picture. All right, so the next process here, let's see if this is, let me see if this works. So if select tool, all right, yes. What I'd like you to do now as a group is just have a scroll over the different sticky points, the anchors, as well as the sails, to move across the whiteboard. So if you go back to the toolbar and you take the hand, that'll help you move across. But what I'd like you to do now is put a vote. You have 3 votes each. Actually, I don't think the 3 votes. It's 1 vote. Sorry, 1 vote. Which idea would you like to move forward with? So with human-centered design, we're trying to find solutions to a problem. What problem would you want to work on for the remainder of this session? So it might be, if it's an enabler, how might we continue to encourage this or strengthen this positivity? Or if it's an anchor, how can we solve for that? So take a gander at the different sticky notes. Again, if you go to the toolbox and you get the hand, that'll help you move the thing. But then what you're going to do is you're going to have to pick the arrow, and then the one that you actually like, click on the sticky note, and there's a little happy face, add a little happy face emoji. All right, so just have a read and pick your the idea that you want to work on for the rest of this session. The most popular votes, that's what we're going to go with. Sorry. I'll give you 2 minutes to read through that and vote. All right, I'm seeing, I mean, there's only two, but that seems to be, try anything, yeah, it's just in there. That seems to be the problem that we want to work on today is this anchor, assuming challenges faced by students. If I may, let's see.
Maybe, Vivian, if people can't put their little thumbs up on it, maybe just get them to hover their mouse over the one they are happy to talk.
Ah, yeah, great.
And that way they see everyone sort of hovering.
Over the anchor.
Yeah. And where are you hovering?
Okay. Oh, which one?
yeah.
The pink or the
I think the
yellow?
pink
Oh,
and the
pink. It
yellow
looks
are
like it's pink.
related, aren't they? That's what I was sort of
Yeah,
trying
these
to,
two are.
I was trying to draw an arrow. Yeah. Mhm.
Understanding the socio situation. Not understanding the socio situation. We think we know. I think the yellow is a bit more specific because it's all about understanding the students' socioeconomic
Yeah.
situation. Whereas assuming challenges, that's a little more broad.
Mm.
So,
And I suppose if we go back to the question, how might we accommodate students to take up higher education? Maybe going back to that socio thought could be something we just work around.
yeah, well, let's just, because the thing is, as I said, to try and highlight this, to solve for a problem, you want to be more specific. And I think for today, I think this takes into more specificity. So I hope you don't mind. This is the one that I'm going to focus on right here. But what I'm going to do is the next step about going from trying to define the problem and understand this is really condensed. This is a process that probably, you should take an hour trying to really unpack. And there's other mechanisms that you should take to come across to your final question. So again, you'll take in your data. You can do interviews with other people and observations to really understand, well, what is the problem? But once you just find kind of a general understanding of what you think the problem is, human-centered design moves into this process of developing this how might we question. Because why they like to use how might we is that how shows that there's a process, might shows that your solution may or may not work, and that's okay. And then we, that it's a collective process. And so for today's question, it looks like, and I'll just go ahead and do here, it looks like the thing is, how might we, let's see, I can see, anchor, better understand, how might we better understand the socioeconomic situation of our students? So it's essentially taking how might we is taking your general problem and putting it into this format. How might we better understand the socioeconomic situation of our students? Does that make sense? Is that a problem that we're comfortable running with?
Yep. Okay. That's good. And I'll put in the chat as well, so we've got something to refer back to.
Lovely. I'm going to write it down there too. So we'll refer back to that. All right. All right. So we're gonna leave this screen for now. Bye screen. Oh, sorry. Nope. Just do that. All right. And then we'll go back to the presentation if that's okay. Okay. So essentially what we've done in this process is that you read and voted. So you've all put out what you think are problems or you think are enablers, and collectively as a group, you would pick which is the one that as a group you want to work forward. And then we've created our how might we better understand the socioeconomic conditions of our students. So moving forward, that is the inspiration aspect of the human-centered design. Now we're going to move to the ideation, where we're trying to actually solve for this problem. So, sorry, there's a slide of how might we, where we're defining it. What we're going to do now is we're going to brainstorm. So there are rules that were made about brainstorming in the 1950s, and they really haven't changed much. But the two things that are appropriate is quantity, not quality. So when we're trying to think about ideas, you want to go for more. You don't want it to have the best solution. You want to go for more. And integral to that is not judging, because oftentimes when we begin to start brainstorming, we're thinking, well, I don't think that's going to work. And then we automatically censor ourselves. But when you're brainstorming, just be receptive and be open to yes. So because again, you're going back to quantity, not quality. So back in the beginning, I asked for you to get a piece of paper and a pen. So if you can take that out now, because what we'll do now is generate some ideas to our solution with some brainstorming. And to open up our minds a little bit, I want you to think about the last time you had toast. Hopefully you're, you're not a celiac, or if, I forget about dietary.
You can have gluten-free toast.
Gluten-free. Right. Think about the last time you had toast. It's in your head. All right. Now what I want you to do on your piece of paper is draw a picture of how to make toast. All right, I'll give you a few minutes. Go. I'll even have some background music for you. If you like.
Well, all I can say is thank goodness people can't see my drawing.
Do you want us to share them?
If you'd like. You don't have to. There's no pressure.
I could totally share mine. Hang on. Video.
Do.
Here's my husband.
Oh, well done.
Another minute.
Mine's much more boring. I'll show. There's a toaster popped out, and I put butter and honey on it, and there it is. Yummo. That's it.
Yummo. All right. Does anybody else like to share?
Others are probably much more creative.
No, and actually the first time I was introduced to this, and I always use the same picture because you can, once you know it, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to embellish it, da 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 da.
Yeah.
But I always go back to what my first drawing because it's good. But this is what I don't know if you can always do.
You gotta go, oh
No. Nope.
no, it's not gonna let
No.
you.
Essentially, it's just your typical piece of bread and a knife on a
There
plate.
you go. Yep, there you go. Katrina's done the toaster as well. Toaster in the
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
and the toaster into the bread. Yep. The process
Oh,
of
look at
Oh, I
that.
did the freezer into the toaster into the.
freezer.
Beautiful. But I think what this activity shows, that you're all artists. Everyone always thinks they're not creative, but look, you were able to make toast. So it's beautiful. But the other thing is that everyone has different perspectives. And that's why it's the beauty of human-centered design thinking is to harness all these different perspectives because everyone makes toast differently. And I love Stu. We're delegating all our different activities. But again, these different perspectives are rich because they'll help us give different perspectives to A, how we see the problem, and B, how we go about solving. So thank you for opening up. So I'm going to go back to our brainstorming rules. because now we're going to tackle this notion of how might we better understand the socioeconomic backgrounds of our students. So what I'd like you to do again, quantity, just keep writing. So right alongside your toast, just go ahead and start jotting down the ideas, because on the other side of the blank side, we're going to use the blank side for something else. So next to your toast, write down your ideas. You'll have 1 minute just to think about how would you solve, about how do you think you would better understand the socioeconomic background of your students. Don't judge. You have a minute. Go. I'll put on some more music. Right. 30 seconds. Okay, so you have your initial idea, and generally your first idea is not your best idea. So what we're going to try and do is expand that just a bit more. So we're going to have a few more exercises to understand what is your solution. So what we're moving on to this thing is called brainstorming with constraints. So again, you'll have another minute, but come up thinking about how can you better understand the socioeconomic status background of your students. What if you had $1 million? How would you go about understanding the background of your students? 1 minute. All right. Now, the thing about constraints, we go from one extreme, let's go to the other. What if you just had $1 or $100? If you just had $100 to try and understand all of your students' background, what would you do? All right. So, generated hopefully a few more ideas. Now we're going to go to this notion called analogous thinking. It's when we try to mash up different ideas to generate new solutions. So in the beginning, I invited you to ask about an experience that was joyful. So if you go to the chat in the Zoom, and perhaps maybe you zoom up, but again, it's interesting because it went all about family. So the thing about analogous thinking is you take one idea and try to apply it to your problem. Is there a way, by spending time with family or making grandchildren making you laugh, is there a way you can apply certain aspects or characteristics of this experience onto solving your problem? So if you're going back to things that make you joyful, is there something about the joyful experience that can help you solve understanding your students? So I'll give you 2 minutes for that. Wait. 20 more seconds. All right. Now hopefully you'll have a list of ideas. What I'd like you to do now is read them over and then circle one that you think is the most feasible idea, one idea that is your favorite, and perhaps one idea that's most creative. So take a look at your list and pick 3 ideas.
Sorry, can I ask one of those annoying clarifying questions again?
Never annoying, but yes.
Our, I'm just going to call it research question here, is how might we better understand the socioeconomic situation of our students? That doesn't necessarily relate to their academic performance, right? So we're just talking about how their socioeconomic status might impact their participation in higher education, or are we just talking about, we're saying that they're students, so they're already students in higher education, and we're just asking how their socioeconomic status impacts their situation, generally speaking, like impacts their life, generally speaking? Because they're entirely different research questions.
They are, absolutely. And that's why I'm trying to spend a lot of time trying to finesse your actual how might we question will generate better solutions. But I think for the purpose of this, exercise it with that last. Try this, the general understanding of students' lives, because if we can understand students' lives, then maybe we can understand where are the pinpoints of initiation. Yeah, but yes, the different different questions. And I think as a group, as you really try to understand your specific problem, you really need to hound it down. There's this other method, it's called the 4 whys. So essentially you'll be asking, well, why is it important to understand the socioeconomic background of our students? Why? Like you continue to ask the whys to really unpack other issues. And then again, you try to understand as a group, well, which is the most feasible question that our group can handle? If we were to solve for it, which one would it be? So the thing about human-centered design is really picking the right problem. Not the first problem, but what is the correct problem? And again, within 45 minutes, it's really hard to,
Got
to
it.
narrow down. But yes, you're correct, Anna, that it's important to understand what is the correct problem.
Yep.
But for the purposes of this, it's
Yep.
I think
And
it's
and what I'm hearing is that so often what I would do in my research is I would think about what is the problem and what is the research question. And once I've got my research question, then I would decide what methodology I might use to try and answer that research question. But what I'm hearing is that with human-centered design, defining the problem, defining the research question or questions is actually part of the process after you've already chosen a human-centered design perspective. So if we go into this project with a preconceived research question or problem in our minds, we're doing it wrong. Am I talking sense?
You are talking, I'm like, oh, HD, that's, you've condensed what I teach in a few sentences. It's not necessarily wrong though. It's just that it's a particular research approach. And for this is a participatory research approach. So for human-centered design, what you're doing, you're not doing mixed methods. You're not doing a post-positivist or a constructivist research approach. You're doing a participatory, which has a specific a view of the world and specific methodology. And so, as you said, when you come together, like when you come to a research project without really understanding what your research question is, and you're trying to work with your different stakeholders, that's a very participatory research process. And human-centered design thinking fits within that participatory research process.
Yep. Okay, thank you so much, Vivian. A lot of that stuff that you were just talking about then is the sort of stuff, because I'm doing a PhD. I've done my confirmation, and so that was a lot of stuff that I had to think about, epistemology and all of that prior to confirmation. But we've got a few researchers in our group that probably haven't really explored ontologies, epistemologies, and all of that sort of stuff to that level. So yeah, it'll be good if as a group we can explore that stuff as a starting point to work out if that participatory approach is actually what we want to do.
That's great. So if you, I guess you can take elements of these different activities and put it into a different research approach. But it wouldn't necessarily be participatory. So what hopefully I'm showing you today are different activities that you can do, research activities that you can do. You don't necessarily have to adopt the whole thing if where your research ontologies fall. So back here, so if you've each circled 3 different solutions. So if we can go back and put down, see, so there we go. Oh, that's not how might we, sorry. Yeah, go ahead and put down an idea or 3, 1 idea per post-it note. And then the idea is that we'll vote on what these solutions are. If we
A
can
clean whiteboard, enough room.
Just scroll down.
Just scroll down, yeah, scroll down. We'll scroll down. Just stay close by the 0, so that's where I can I can find out where they are.
So these are
Your
So-
3 ideas, your
Fair
brilliant
enough.
solution, your interesting solution, your feasible solution. Trix, I like that, helping grandparents to support their
Yeah, I'll
grandparents.
put that across too.
I know that's
I
very
thought we were
fun.
supposed to write in the chat before, so I'm throwing it in there thinking, oh, oops a daisy.
That's all right. Because then there'll be notes for you as well. So, and also you can always, because you have access to this whiteboard, you can go back. Hopefully, let me know if you can't. But I think you can go back and see how this goes. Just going to, sorry for the vertigo. I'm just going to zoom out a little. Ah, the $1 million. Take a sabbatical. Ethnographic study.
Yeah.
All right. Track their spending. So you die. Oh, interesting. Okay. Using social media to view their personal lives. Lovely. Oh, that's interesting. Yep. Qualitative methods. Oops, maybe I'll shrink this down. Sorry for the vertigo. I guess that's the thing with the whiteboard. It's not, Padlet's just pretty static, where this, apologies all for that. Value money. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, see, I'm very intrigued by all these different avenues. I mean, these are all fruitful to try and understand. Again, if you work directly with students, I'm sure you'll get maybe similar answers or maybe completely different answers. Enrollment, information. Yep. Love it. I recognize that we're running out of time, so I'm just going to kind of do a quick whirlwind of what it is from this point on. Again, these are amazing ideas, and I can see these are things that some of them can be actionable, and to be interested in investigating. As I said, human-centered design thinking, it's different from traditional research processes, because traditional research, you do an ethics application. You still have to probably do an ethics application for this as well, but you do an ethics application, you conduct the research, you work with the community, and then you make recommendations. And so that's perhaps maybe a year-long endeavor. Human-centered design thinking wants to shrink that time frame down, because again, as you're working with them, and as we've even seen today, like, ooh, maybe this isn't the right research question. We're not asking the right research question. You can take a step back and go, okay, well, what are we trying to answer? So you're not locked into that research question right away. And even now, if you're looking at these solutions, you're thinking, no, they're still not asking what I want to get at. You can go back and start over again. It's that iterative process. And with these solutions too, if you, I'm going to move forward, because let's say at this point too, as a group, the next step is that as a group, you look at all these solutions, and similarly, you would vote, okay, as a group, which one should we move forward? And then, I'm sorry, it's beautiful, keep working. I'm just going to share my screen so I can show you. I'm just going to show you kind of the final stage of the human-centered design thinking is the implementation round. So we've done the inspiration, trying to find what is the problem. We did ideation, look at the beautiful ideas that are coming on screen. And then now is the implementation. And so essentially what you do is, as a group, as I said, you kind of decide, well, which idea do we want to propose forward? And the next step is trying to understand, well, which one should you push forward? Let's say you pick an idea, but it's high effort, high impact. That's not necessarily what you want to do. A sweet spot here is the low effort and high impact. So from this point, you want to see if there's a way, if you have an idea, is there things that you can strip away to make it low effort? Or again, trying to think about how can we reiterate on our existing idea? Can we make it better? Can we magnify a certain aspect of it? Could we beautify it? Just generating different ideas off of already the voted idea and trying to understand what can we do to get it into the quadrant of low effort, high impact. If it's high effort, low impact, you generally don't want to do that. Low effort, low impact, you don't want to do that. But it's just a good gauge to see where you're at. And then once you do have that holy grail, look, this is a solution, it's high effort, high impact. What you want to do is sketch it out again, because you want to see, well, what does your idea look like? And you generally want to do a storyboard. And again, apologies, I have you sketch it out right now, but I recognize there's about 4 minutes left. You want to storyboard and see, generally I use a 6-page storyboard, so you can actually see from start to finish, what are the steps that need to happen. So it's kind of a logic model. So from a funding perspective, if you're trying to see, we're trying to do this initiative, you can see, well, what is necessary, what are the steps necessary to happen. But for this exercise, I like the 1-panel storyboard, because the thing is, it's not just stopping here at the storyboard. The idea is to share among your fellow colleagues. Okay, well, this is the idea. How can I improve upon it? Or are there different considerations I haven't thought about? It's looking at, again, those different levels of toast, how people make toast. You each have your different perspectives and worldviews and experiences that you can bring in. So when someone proposes an idea, that if you go back and talk to your different stakeholders, you want to improve upon it. So again, solutions aren't just, okay, we came up with solutions. You're constantly building upon it and making sure it's something that your community wants. And the only way you know that is that you're constantly getting feedback. So in a whirlwind of presentation, I went through the 3 steps. And you've journeyed along on the inspiration and ideation. And I apologize that we haven't had the opportunity to implement, but on your own time, if you'd like to sketch out the ideas and then as a group perhaps have feedback, please do so. But it sounds like as well that as a group, you're going to go back and actually look at what is the problem you're trying to solve. But I thank you for your energy and your participation today, for just getting a glimpse. Again, it's just a taster. It's a whole new world. I'm happy to talk about it. Just send me an email through CQU or find me on LinkedIn. Happy to talk about it. But I hope that today that's something that you've got some new ideas or different ways of viewing the world. So thank you.
Oh, Vivian, thank you very, very much for this session today. And I think you've actually given us a lot of ideas and understanding the value of the brainstorming process, because as you said, each one of us come into this with our own ideas, our own worldviews, our own perspectives. So to be able to pull all those ideas together and then, like you were showing us, break them down, pull them apart in order to come up with, you know, that key project that we're going to do, that's really, really valuable. And for most of us, we're still learning. We're still getting our head around how this, and I love when you talk about this participatory research approach, and we have discussed that in the past, you know, that's the type of approach we think we want to use. So we're still in the very early stages, but thank you so much. Does anyone else want to share any thoughts around today's session?
No, I just thank you. Really enjoyed it. Wasn't even thinking about that article. I wanted to read it all.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Thank you, Anna. Thank you for the
Yeah,
question.
thanks, Vivian.
Thank you. Trixie, yeah, I'm happy though too, if you just need a sounding board too.
Yes.
I'm absolutely happy to help anything participatory research.
Yeah, sounds
All right,
great.
Tal. Good
Thank
luck.
you.
Enjoy. I'll see you later.
Thanks. Thank you everyone for attending.